In the sky, as far as the eye can see, there is only the open blue sky, the grandest stage for human dreams, where humanity wrote its greatest victories and left behind some of its biggest mysteries. Taking flight has always been mankind's oldest desire. But sometimes the same sky that gives life can also swallow everything in an instant. There are some planes that took off but never returned. Neither a trace of them nor of the people traveling in them is ever found. These are the stories where science, technology, and logic all come to a halt, where the answer to every question is lost in the winds. Some planes disappeared from radar, some sank into the sea, and for some, to this day, no one knows what happened to them. These were not just accidents. These were incidents that left a deep stain on aviation history. So let's embark on a journey where we will learn about the world's 5 most mysterious aviation incidents. Friends, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please be sure to subscribe. Because one subscription from you gives us a lot of motivation, and we will keep making more such videos for you. So let's start the video. Number 1. Helios 522, August 14, 2005. At Larnaca Airport in Cyprus, Helios Airways Flight 522 was ready for Athens. It was almost 9 in the morning. The air was perfectly clear. The sky was blue and calm. 115 passengers and 6 crew members were all relaxed for a normal flight. No one could have imagined that in the next 2 hours, this plane would become a flying tomb. The flight's routine check began. An engineer set the pressurization system to manual mode for a test, but after the test, he forgot to switch it back to auto. Small mistake, a small switch. But this very switch was about to become the cause of death for 121 people ashore while later. The plane took off, and as soon as it climbed above 12,000 feet, the oxygen pressure inside the cabin began to drop. The pilot noticed a loud warning siren starting to sound, and both the temperature and pressure seemed abnormal. But the problem was, that warning siren would sound in 2 different situations. One during takeoff and one when the cabin pressure dropped. And the pilot thought maybe there was a small problem with the air conditioning system. They did not put on their oxygen masks. As the plane gained altitude, the oxygen in the cabin began to deplete. One by one, passengers began to pass out. The crew collapsed, and then both pilots became unconscious. This all happened in just 10 to 15 minutes. The plane was now on autopilot. Without any human control, it continued to fly straight towards Athens at an altitude of 34,000 feet. Air traffic control tried to make contact repeatedly, but there was no response. They thought it was a communication failure, but in reality, life inside the plane had already ended. A short while later, 2 F-16 fighter jets from the Greek Air Force were sent to intercept. When they approached the Boeing, what they saw was spine-chilling. Inside the cockpit, the bodies of both pilots were slumped over, completely lifeless. Inside the cabin windows, there was no movement, just a frozen silence. But there was one face, a man who seemed to be alive. That was Andreas Prodromou, the flight attendant. He was wearing an emergency oxygen mask and was trying to enter the cockpit. He tried to take control, but by then, it was too late. The plane was about to run out of fuel. The autopilot had crossed its limits. The fuel was near zero, and in a few minutes, both engines shut down. The plane slowly began to lose altitude. Andreas made one last desperate attempt to take control, but the altitude was dropping rapidly. The fighter jet pilots watched as the Boeing 737 slowly descended towards the ground and crashed into a hill near a small village named Grammatico. A deafening explosion. Everything was over in a moment. 121 people died. No one survived. Finding the black box after the crash clarified everything. The cabin pressurization system was set to manual. The pilots misunderstood the pressurization warning. They thought it was a fault in the air conditioning system. And by the time they realized the real problem, their brains had already run out of oxygen. Flight attendant Andreas, and his fiancée were crew members on the flight. Their desperate calls and the sound of some buttons being pressed were found on the black box, a final attempt that the world never forgot. How is it possible that a fully functional modern jet could take 121 lives just because of a small switch in the wrong position? Is our technology so dependent on human oversight? Helios Airways Flight 522 is a constant reminder. Human error is sometimes more dangerous than machine failure. Number 2. Amelia Earhart. The year was 1937. The world was stepping into a new era, and flying in the air was a dream for mankind. But there was a woman whose dream was the biggest of all: to circle the world by air. Her name was Amelia Earhart, a bold, fearless, and inspirational pilot from America. In 1932, she set a world record by crossing the Atlantic Ocean alone. And now her mission was a full circumnavigation flight around the Earth. Amelia took off in a Lockheed Electra 10E aircraft with her navigator, Fred Noonan. Their route was from California to Hawaii, then to the small islands of the Pacific, and then around the world back to America. A 30,000-kilometer journey, 20 stops, and one dream: to write her name in history forever. July 2, 1937, their plane takes off from Lae, Papua New Guinea. Everything was going perfectly. Their next stop was Howland Island, a tiny spot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that looks like a pin on the map. At approximately 8:43 in the morning, Amelia's voice came over the radio. "We are on the line 157-337. We are running north and south." After that, silence. No Mayday call, no crash signal. Just one last radio transmission echoing in the winds, and then Amelia and her navigator disappeared from the world. At that time, America launched the largest air-sea search operation in history. 66 aircraft, 9 ships, and $4 million were spent, but neither the plane nor the bodies were found. Just the endless blue horizon over the sea. President Franklin D. Roosevelt himself authorized the search mission, but after 17 days, he said, "We did everything we could." The most popular theory says that Amelia's plane crashed into the sea near Howland Island after running out of fuel. But if that happened, why was no wreckage found? In the 1980s, archaeologists found parts of an old Lockheed plane and the bones of a female skeleton on a remote island. The DNA tests were inconclusive, but experts say Amelia might have reached there and then died as the sole survivor. One theory says that their plane accidentally landed near the Marshall Islands, which were occupied by Japan, and the Japanese army captured them. Some old photographs show a woman and a man who look like Amelia and Noonan, but the proof was never confirmed. Some historians say Amelia was actually on a spy mission for the US government, and her disappearance was a cover-up. But there is no solid evidence for this theory. Even today, sonar and satellite searches are ongoing in the ocean around Howland Island, but her plane has not been found yet. Number 3. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. March 8, 2014, Kuala Lumpur International Airport. At 12:42 a.m., a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 Flight MH370 takes off for Beijing. 239 people were on board, 227 passengers, and 12 crew members. Everything was perfectly normal until it reached the South China Sea. At around 1:19 a.m., the captain told air traffic control, "Good night, Malaysian 370. A few seconds later, the plane disappeared from the radar. No mayday call, no emergency message, just a silence that has not been broken yet. At first, authorities thought the plane might have crashed in the South China Sea. But when they checked the radar and satellite data, they made a shocking discovery. The plane had changed its route. Instead of heading northeast toward Beijing, it turned west and then flew in a strange zigzag pattern over the Malay Peninsula. After that, it turned again and entered the southern Indian Ocean. This means the plane was under the pilot's control, but no one knows why. A satellite from the British company Inmarsat captured a weak handshake signal from Mach 370. According to that signal, the plane was in the air for the next 6 hours. After that, the signal cut out completely. So the plane kept flying until its fuel ran out and must have crashed somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But when the search teams arrived there, no wreckage was found, no debris, just silence in the middle of the sea and the scream of the wind. Investigators checked the flight simulator data of the pilot, Zahari Ahmad Shah. A route was saved there, the exact same one that Mach 370 followed during its flight. Was all of this pre-planned? Some experts say that someone might have turned off the plane's transponder and put it on autopilot so it would appear to disappear from radar. Another theory suggests a sudden fire or pressure failure caused the crew to pass out. On autopilot, the plane continued to fly until it ran out of fuel. Some people say the plane accidentally entered a military testing zone and was shot down, but the governments are silent. People on the internet created many theories. They say the plane entered a zone like the Bermuda Triangle or was captured by aliens. But there was no proof. In 2015, a piece of debris was found on the shore of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. It was part of the wing of Mach 370. More debris appeared in Mozambique and Madagascar, but not the main body, cockpit, or passengers. 239 people and the entire aircraft vanished from the sky instantly, and even 26 nations from around the world working together couldn't find it. Even today, somewhere beneath the Indian Ocean, a Boeing 777 lies hidden, where people's phones, favorite clothes, and unfinished stories will remain silent for centuries. Every year, the families of those people ask one question: what were their last moments like? Some people say Flight Mach 370 didn't just take people, it also took away humanity's faith in science and logic. Number 4. The Valentic disappearance. The date was October 21st, 1978. The place was Melbourne, Australia. A 20-year-old young pilot, Frederick Valentic, set out for King Island in his small single-engine Cessna 182A aircraft. His flight plan was simple: a short route of 125 nautical miles, just a 40-minute flight. The weather was clear, the wind was calm. There was no reason for fear. But what was about to happen to him changed the entire aviation world forever. Around 6:19 in the evening, Valentic contacted Melbourne Air Traffic Control. He said, "Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. I am at an altitude of 4,500 feet. Everything was fine." But a few minutes later, a strange tension could be heard in his voice. He said on the radio, "Is there any traffic below 5,000? The air traffic controller replied, "Negative, no traffic." Then Valentic said, "I can see a large aircraft below me that is moving at high speed." The controller asked, "Can you identify it?" And Valentic replied, "It's not an aircraft. It's moving in a strange way. It seems like it's playing with me." A little later, he reported that the object had a greenish light shining from it, and it was orbiting above him. There was now clear panic in Valentic's voice. He said, "It's hovering. It's not an aircraft." The controller then asked to maintain contact. But in the next 6 minutes, Valentic's last words were recorded. He said, "It's orbiting above me. It's not an aircraft." Then a metallic scraping noise was heard on the radio. A continuous metallic sound that lasted for 17 seconds, and after that, complete silence. The transmission cut out, and after that, Valentic never returned. From the next day, the Australian Air Force and Navy began a search operation. The entire Bass Strait area was scoured. No piece of any aircraft, no fuel trail, no signal, nothing was found. It was as if Valentic and his plane had dissolved into thin air. Only a few people claimed to have seen weird moving lights in the sky around that day. A fisherman said he saw a bright light that was static over the water and then suddenly vanished. Some people said it was a UFO, but the official investigation said maybe it was disorientation or Valentic mistook his own plane's reflection. But if it was just a reflection, Then what was that metallic scraping noise on the radio? The investigation also revealed that Valentik had a deep interest in UFOs. He had told his friends that if he ever saw a UFO, he would want to go near it and see it. He had also told his girlfriend that if something happened to me, they could take me. Some people said he intentionally planned all this to make his disappearance a mystery by crashing his plane. But no crash debris was ever found. Valentik's last words and the 17-second metallic noise convinced UFO believers that he was in contact with an alien craft. Some aviation experts say Valentik was not experienced in night flying. He mistook his own plane's reflection for a UFO and crashed into the sea in confusion. Some people say that the engine failed due to oxygen starvation or a fuel problem, and the plane fell into the sea. But that would have left wreckage, and none has ever been found. Even after 45 years, Frederick Valentik's case remains unsolved. His plane, his body, or even a small piece of metal was never recovered. The official report stated his disappearance was presumed fatal, but people still say that something beyond human technology descended in the skies over Bay Strait that night. And if Valentik's last transmission was true, it's not an aircraft. Then maybe he was truly facing a power that came from another world. Was it an alien encounter or an illusion that the human mind cannot comprehend? No one knows. Only his last voice echoes in the air. Number 5. The Egypt Air Flight 990 mystery. The date was October 31, 1999. The flight was Egypt Air Flight 990. The route was from Los Angeles to Cairo, with a stopover in New York. The aircraft was a Boeing 767 with 217 people on board. Egyptian pilots, crew members, and passengers, most of whom were military officers and diplomats. Everything was normal. The weather was clear. The flight took off smoothly from New York and was cruising over the Atlantic Ocean at 1:50 at night. Then, it all ended in 6 minutes. At 1:47 at night, co-pilot Relief First Officer Gamil al-Bituti takes control when Captain Ahmed al-Habashi steps out of the cockpit for a rest. Everything was calm. The flight was stable at an altitude of 33,000 feet. At 1:48, the captain was still in the cabin when Egypt Air 990 suddenly started to descend on the radar screen at a speed as if someone had intentionally put it into a nosedive. Air traffic control tried to make repeated contact. There was no response, and a few seconds later, the flight crashed into the ocean. After the crash, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board took over the investigation because the crash occurred near the coast of Massachusetts. They retrieved the black box recordings, and from there, they found things that were a shock to the world. The first 2 minutes of the recordings were completely normal, but then a voice is heard in the background, Tawakkaltu ila Allah, which in Arabic means, I put my trust in God. After that, the plane's pitch and vertical speed changed drastically. The throttle was cut off, and the plane went into a full dive. From 33,000 feet directly to 16,000 feet in just a few seconds. At that moment, the captain rushes back into the cockpit and shouts, "What's happening? What's happening?" But the co-pilot says, "I rely on God." Then again, "I rely on God," meaning, I trust in God. The plane climbed slightly again, as if the captain tried to regain control. But then another sharp dive, silence, and the crash. It was so violent that even the smallest parts of the plane were found in the ocean. The bodies were severely damaged, and the wreckage was 70 meters deep. But the key was, no technical malfunction was found. Engines, controls, hydraulics were all fine. U.S. investigators said it was not an accident. Co-pilot Gamil al-Bituti deliberately crashed the plane. They said he was the only one in the cockpit when the dive started, and his actions and statements, "I rely on God," suggest that he took the plane into a suicide dive. But Egyptian officials completely rejected this. They said that al-Bituti was an experienced pilot. He was religious, but he could never do something like this. They said perhaps there was a mechanical failure in the plane or the rudder jam, and the co-pilot's words, I rely on God. We're just out of panic, not suicide. If there was a malfunction, then how did everything seem normal until the minute before the crash? And if it was a suicide, why did he take his own life along with 217 other people? No motive was found, no suicide note, no record of any mental health issues. Some insiders said there was talk of recently grounding al-Batouti, and perhaps he took this step in anger. But this remained just an unconfirmed rumor. The crash of Egypt Air Flight 990 remains a political and psychological puzzle to this day. American records state intentional act. Egyptian records state mechanical failure. But the real truth has long been buried deep in the waters of the Atlantic. And every time a Boeing 767 flies over the Atlantic, the aviation world remembers that night when a pilot said, "I place my trust only in God," and then the world never saw him again.